Hey everyone, this is the Composition Strategies and Illusion of Depth workshop. You should have 4 worksheets that we're going to go over. I'm going to try to go very quickly so this isn't a super long workshop, but 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, if you don't have all 4 of those, ask me for them and I will gladly get them to you. Okay, so for composition strategies, we talked about composition being the placement or arrangement of the visual elements, all the things in your artwork. Another word for it is layout. Okay, it's how things are placed in your artwork. And don't forget to put your name on all of these as well. So if they ever accidentally fall out of your art book, I know who to get it to. Okay, so the first one that we're going to talk about is isolation. When we did this in class, we finger painted, just as kind of a fun way to switch things up a little bit. But if you're doing this on your own, you can draw with colored pencils or a regular pencil or finger paint if you have paint and you want to do that. But basically, isolation, you don't have to copy my examples exactly. In fact, I really enjoy seeing what all y'all come up with. But isolation is where one element is isolated from all the other elements on the page. So I don't know, maybe you have an element that's all down here by its lonesome or something like that. Dominance is where you have one dominant element that is kind of the focal point or the main idea of your composition. So that might look like a bunch of different things. Oh no, my pencil broke. Again, I'm not really interested in you just copying exactly what I do. I'm more interested in you understanding these concepts as a whole. Okay. So if I'm creating a composition with a dominant element, I've got one part of my drawing that is the focal point. Whoops. Okay, second page, Composition Strategies Part 2. Rule of thirds. If you are an Instagram user and you've ever turned the grid on when you're taking a photo, it probably looks something like this. And they pull that from the rule of thirds. What the rule of thirds is, it's like a tic-tac-toe board. So 2 lines up and down, 2 lines going side to side. And the whole idea behind rule of thirds is that your focal point is in one of these areas where the lines crisscross. Okay? You don't want to have something at all of these intersections because then you're not really following rule of thirds. You're just putting something in the middle of your composition. So if I'm following the rule of thirds, sorry for shaking, I've got, the focal point or the main part of my composition where these 2 lines crisscross. If you have other elements going on in your composition, another thing we talked about is only having the majority of your composition be in 3 squares, okay? You can kind of spill out into other squares, but the majority of my composition is focused in these 3 squares, okay? I've got a little spilling out, that's okay. Next one is symmetry versus asymmetry. We talked about what symmetry means. If you were to draw a line down the middle of your page, I know that's kind of light. Symmetry, whatever is on the left has to be on the right as well. Okay, if an element is you know, this far away from the center line. It needs to be that far away from the center line on the other side. Oh, man. Okay, so whatever you do to one side, you do to the other. Asymmetry. Asymmetry is not just the absence of symmetry. For example, if I was looking up here, if I just omitted or did not draw that one corner piece, is this really asymmetry, or is this just look like messed up symmetry? So asymmetry, the point is to be very intentional about your asymmetrical layout. So if I've got a very visually heavy element or piece of my artwork down here in this corner, not only do I just want this half to look different, but I want it to look intentionally different. Things are very visually heavy over here and very not heavy over here. Okay, here's some more examples from when we were finger painting. Feel free to pause. Next, we discussed illusion of depth. Okay, so what illusion of depth is it's to create a convincing illusion of a 3D space on a 2D surface, because the majority of our works are going to be on a two-dimensional surface, length and height, okay? But sometimes we're going to be drawing things that we want to look like they have that third dimension, that depth, okay? So we talked about foreground, middle ground, and background. Foreground are the things that appear closest to us. Middle ground are the things like in the middle, and then background are the things off in the distance. Our first way or method we're going to talk about illusion of depth is through overlap. Okay, so if I have pencil lead, if I have objects that are overlapping one another and I just draw them outright like that, that's not a very good example of overlap, okay? Because you could see parts of my circle through my square. If I was going to achieve overlap, okay, it looks like my square is in front of my circle because of the way that I have created these objects. Okay. I guess I could color this one too. Voila, overlap. The square looks like it's in front of the circle. The second one is through placement, okay? Objects that are closer to us. Well, hold on, let me back up. Okay, first thing, draw a horizon line. Okay? Objects that appear closer to us are further from our horizon line. For example. Okay? Objects that are closer to our horizon line appear farther away. So on and so forth. So it looks like these squares are going off into the distance. Same if I was working above the horizon line. Okay, let's say these were clouds. These clouds would look like they're getting closer to our horizon line. Think of the horizon line as where the sky meets the earth. Okay, it's the furthest point you can see off into the distance. Illusion of depth. Here's my finger painting example. Okay. Last one, Illusion of Depth, page 2. Make sure you've got your name on there. Again, we're showing foreground, middle ground, and background through size. So we discussed that objects that are closer to us are larger. This is some kindergarten coloring right here. I apologize. I'm trying to go quickly so this video is not 20 minutes long. Okay, but objects that are closer to us are larger. Objects that are in the middle ground, kind of a medium size, and objects that are furthest from us are kind of the smallest size. Also notice that I incorporated some of my knowledge from the first illusion of depth through my placement. Okay, these objects are traveling away from me. These objects are also traveling away from me. If that was my horizon line, it looks like those circles are going off into the distance. Okay, last one, cut your box in half. This is not a horizon line, I'm just showing you 2 examples, okay? If we're talking about foreground, middle ground, and background through color, we have to consider how we're approaching this. If we're approaching this through value, it is going to be different than if we approach it through intensity. So label that value and intensity, and I'm going to show you what I'm talking about. If I have 3 colors, I have yellow, red, and brown. Okay, if we're talking about value, lightness and darkness of colors of objects, yellow is my lightest value, red is my medium value, and brown is my darkest value. Okay, objects that are closest to us when we're talking about value are going to appear lightest. I hope you can see that yellow. Yes. Objects that are in the middle ground are going to be of a medium value, and objects that are furthest from us are going to be our darkest value. Okay, so that's if we're talking about value, lightness versus darkness of an object. If we're talking about intensity of the color, it's actually going to be opposite. If you've ever thought about, if you've ever watched like a Bob Ross video, his videos are great examples of this concept. So objects closest to us are going to have the highest intensity. As they travel away from us, the intensity is going to lessen, or the color is going to appear lighter. Okay, so the intensity lessens as objects fade into the distance, but the value darkens if you're talking about foreground, middle ground, and background through color. Also, here's my finger painting example for that one as well. Alright, I hope this video was helpful. Again, please don't copy my examples exactly. I want to see that you understand the concept. So feel free to put your own twist or spin on it. Thanks for watching.